Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of The Take on the College Football Mafia Network. I'm your host, Nathan Bomber Brown. I have a guest tonight, special guy that you may know on Twitter, but he's been around on social media much longer than I've been doing this, way years. It would be Chris at Inside the Big 12 on Twitter. We will be talking valuations for the ACC and the Big 12. He's a numbers guy. Hot major data analytics stuff. So I'm going to ask lots of questions. We're going to have him answer as we work through this. Probably don't have a ton of time for questions. So if you have something that you want to be asked tonight, it'll have to be a super chat so that we can stay focused because the topic, ACC versus Big 12, isn't a small thing. Like I've been talking about since I started my channel 3 years ago, right? It really matters where these schools are going and where they're not, or if they're going anywhere. As we don't have realignment, I've dropped that. It's now consolidation, and I'm sort of outside the conferences at this point. So, Chris, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing fine. I can't believe I'm doing this again. I made a promise to myself and I wouldn't do it. You know how I got into data analytics, don't you?
Please tell us.
Because sources lied to me a bunch. They told me what what they wanted to get out.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure that they're not jamming something up your rear,
Sure.
and they'll do it.
Absolutely.
If somebody's telling you something, volunteering you information, they've got a reason to do it, and they're not being honest.
Bad data in, bad data out, right?
Well, they just trying to manipulate. But people don't understand, what this does to like a college football program. It affects the boosters and donors. If they can get a rumor going, heaven forbid anybody from advancement would ever tell a fib. But if they can use any hook to raise money and get more donations, they will.
Right. Well, and right now that money goes to where? It used to go to facilities and coaching and everything else, and now it's NIL, right? And how the schools
Yeah,
survive without the two.
it's unsustainable. I just can't. The other thing I got into analytics about was because I was worried that what we thought of West Virginia's value was wrong, that we were overstating it. And then I got into it. I found out that Mountaineers are actually pessimists and the unhappiest people on the planet. And we actually devalued our program, but there was no explanation of how WVU could build the value and the success that they had. And I'm truly concerned that the changes in college football are going to make it impossible for, in the industry, like the SEC, they call West Virginia the little program that could. There's no explanation for the Mountaineers' success. They should not be as successful as they are as coming from such a poor state. And
right.
the NIL stuff is going to ruin it. It's going to ruin the whole spirit of the game. And
I see that, and I totally understand what you're saying. I sort of look at it. Well, I'll be honest. I'm a BYU fan, right? So we've been behind a curtain for 50 years. Now we finally have a chance that the rules changed legally. Obviously, the church wasn't going to do any of the breaking rules. I'm not going to speak for what happened in the 80s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, but I know right now that administration wouldn't touch it. I don't think it did in the past either. But my point is that now we, and I say we can come out of the shadows and actually donate. And now you're seeing tens of millions of dollars, big planning projects, or talking about stadium stuff, and then NIL. So, as far as money coming in from donors and whatnot, BYU, and maybe today people don't appreciate where the money is, but in 2 or 3 years, it's going to be completely different. It's going to be, I'm not saying SMU level, but there's going to be a lot of money coming in from the.
But it's
boosters.
Still unsustainable.
Oh yeah, I don't know about the sustainability. Is not something I can control, so I don't really.
People have a wrong idea about WVU. WVU is not a poor program, but they pretend to be poor because they have a duty to be frugal and good stewards of money, that they do have. But they have 5 apex predators, not apex predators, apex donors. Ken Kendricks, The Nutting family, who owns the Pirates, one of the founders of Oracle, a guy named Bray Carey, who was one of the early pioneers of ESPN and one of the co-founders of NASCAR. Mountaineers have some heavy hitters up top, and they hide their money. I've been trying for years to find out how much money the Mountaineer Athletic Club actually has, and cannot penetrate that veil.
So let me ask. That's amazing answer for one. Two, I can already tell where this level of conversation is going to go, and I'm very grateful for you being here tonight. I want to thank everybody for being here. By the way, we are head-to-head with the NFL kickoff tonight. It's all about Seahawks. I don't care about Eagles or Dallas. Let them beat the hell out of each other. I could care less. But NFL tonight. So we're going to go as long as this conversation continues to flow. Again, if you guys have specific questions, I will take super chats. But we're going to try to get through a lot of content in a short amount of time. And I'm hoping that Chris isn't scared off and he will come back in the future.
Mhm.
So we'll try to find out as much information as we can. Okay, let me circle back to what you said about West Virginia. So isn't there an advantage? Because I think there is. Isn't there an advantage for West Virginia to pull back the cloak and expose how much money they really have access to, not so they can turn around and write a check for it, but so that the public perception out in the perception world, which is where we all live in the social media landscape, why don't they do that? Because in my opinion, keeping it hidden anymore is not an asset. It might have been an asset in the past, my opinion. I think now everybody needs to be over it. Andrew Luck, I don't know if you saw this. He's trying to raise $300 million for nothing else than getting players and sustaining players.
That's everything I know about human performance screams that's wrong. But the answer to your question about WVU is no, because West Virginia is a poor state. Half our people
Right.
live at or below the poverty line. They can't flaunt their excess money. They have a duty to the people, to one, to be frugal, which they are. They're very good stewards of their money. And secondly, the state would take it. All that money sitting in the Mountaineer Athletic Club and the West Virginia Foundation. The way West Virginia University is all their money has to go to the state auditor and flows back to them.
Okay.
So that's why they hide. I shouldn't say hide, but it's accounting practice.
Right.
Like the rights fees that you pay for purchase Mountaineer season tickets.
Right.
That all goes to the Mountaineer Athletic Club. Most expensive ticket in the Big 12 is a Mountaineer ticket.
Do you guys? Oh, I don't know if that's true. How much is your average season ticket?
It depends on how much you have to contribute to the MAC. It's anywhere from, $250 to a couple $1,000s per seat.
Yeah,
licensing.
Okay. And remind me how big your stadium is, because that also makes a difference.
58,000.
Okay. All right. Yeah, not far different. So, the title of the show and what we were promoting it for a while now was ACC and Big 12. You and I got to know each other on Twitter. We argued, we fought, and then didn't talk much, and then we argued. And what's that?
I don't argue. I educate.
Okay. All right. Well, I was being thick-headed. I wasn't learning, right? Part of that is because it's hard to trust on Twitter, and you never know who you're engaging with. So explain the context of why ACC Big 12 is such a big deal. And then out on top of that, just answer that question. Why does this fight between these two conferences, or just between the schools, such a big deal?
Because they're both not going to survive. There's not going to be enough money for them both. The Big 12 understood that with the Pac-12.
Right.
That's why, they slid in, and negotiated the contract a year before their window opened.
Yeah.
They understood, that the Pac-12, the Big 12, and the ACC, only one of those conferences is going to come out on the other side, and that's still not guaranteed. But the Pac-12 was killed by hubris. The ACC
Yes.
has critical problems that are covered up by Florida State, Clemson, and Notre Dame. I think
Not UNC, not Virginia, not Louisville.
half the conference has less than 1 million for in their fan bases.
Yeah, let me bring this up while you're talking, just so people can see what you're talking about. This is the DMA sheet you sent me. If you want to go into this at all.
Well, the most important thing about that spreadsheet I sent you is that the social media column, because you can directly equate that to engaged fans and brand equity.
So let's see. West Virginia, just for item's sake, you have social 837,000 people on social media. That seems like a big number to me.
That comes from Skull Spark.
Okay.
Lifted it straight off of them. It used to be that you could get a lot of data free, but
Right.
now everything is behind a paywall.
Yes.
So what we get is so incomplete, and so you have to mine for it everywhere you can get it. So Skull Spark, they have contracts with most of the major schools, to manage their social media, so they have direct knowledge of how many subscribers they are.
Okay.
And it doesn't surprise me knowing West Virginia, because that's all. If you're in West Virginia and Mountaineers, that's it. If Mountaineers lose, you have a bad week.
So then let's ask this question then. And how up to date is this number? Is this a little while ago, or when did you last update it?
They're current.
They're current today. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So if we're going to say they're current to what, for one thing, I just had this idea jump into my head. I should get you and Jeff Fuller to combine, or at least to talk to each other, because I might be remembering wrong, but I thought the social media size for Brigham Young was about double what is being reported here.
That's active, engaged fans. They may report more.
Right.
They're talking about interactions with. Remember, because the whole idea is to monetize the fan base.
Absolutely. Yes. There's no doubt about it. Yes. Okay. All right. So keep going.
Well, and the other thing you do, the other thing you have to be careful of, there's so many sources of quote unquote information out there, and you have to find a way to reconcile them all to try to be the fairest you can be to everybody.
Right.
And sometimes I go round and round and round trying to do that myself. And like, for instance, fan base estimates. They're the best fan base estimates we have. The most quantitative and qualitative and peer reviewed is that New York Times fan map, and it's getting old.
Okay.
That's real science went into putting that thing together, and they won't give out their data. I've tried. Right. But what you can do is you can extrapolate.
Right.
You can do. You can take that number and use that as a base, and then you can take things like the Skull Spark numbers that they used to publish fairly regularly, and sort of try to engineer a ballpark for comparative value number. And I say that, and that's an important distinction to make, because for me to be accurate would cost me at least $1 million for the information.
Whoa, really? To data mine that, everything that you wanted would be $1 million.
Well, Nielsen subscription, those are not cheap.
I don't. That's out of my depth, so I believe you.
Learfield IMG has a database, and it's like the One Ring of information. It is. I had access to that thing for a couple of hours one day, I think 2 years ago, and the amount of information they have at their fingertips about a fan of a program, is mind-boggling, and we can't touch it. The TV ratings that we get, they give those for free. They have adjusted TV ratings. Right. For example, the ratings that Sports Media Watch publishes are only the overnights of major markets. Mm-hmm. That doesn't include all the people who watched it, who recorded it or watched it at a bar. And sometimes they can jump significantly. West Virginia and BYU and Oklahoma State are tops in the Big 12 for adjusted TV ratings. Their ratings will typically, now a guy at Nielsen told me this, he wouldn't give me numbers, and I had to pester this man for a year to get this out of him. Typically, those three programs will see a difference of 30% between the overnight reported ratings and the final adjusted ratings.
Really? That's a huge number. 30% is massive.
Well, yeah, I questioned him about it myself. I said, 30%, that's, but he pointed out that those ratings that we see,
Yeah.
for example, are not even in the market. For WVU's ratings, those don't include Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh is not a major market.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, Pittsburgh gets
Okay.
wrapped in later. West Virginia does extremely well in Western Maryland and DC. Does better in Virginia Tech.
Right.
But doesn't get credit for those in the overnights. They get rolled in for the adjusted ratings.
So
So
sorry, go ahead and finish. I'm sorry.
it's a completely different beast. It just turns the picture. It's like a mirror image. We have no clue what the real TV ratings are from what we get from Sports Media Watch. Because
Very fair.
I mean, viewing habits have changed. I mean,
Yeah, you're right. People are watching. I mean, I watched the UNC game, have watched along on my cell phone. I have no idea if they're going to get credit for that or not, right?
They not on the overnights.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's kind of where we're at. There's perception and reality. So let's
you
get.
know what? They want it that way because it saves them money.
Oh, okay. So let's talk about the contrast. You and I both know, because you've been doing it longer than me, but I've been doing it a little while too, that the ACC is so top heavy with their viewership numbers and where everybody's going. 2, 3, 4 brands at the most are getting all the viewers.
Huh.
Let's assume, and I don't know, I guess Greg, peek around the corner today, might have hinted that Florida State, Virginia, UNC, and Clemson are. Let's just assume they're out of the ACC. I don't care where they go. Let's just assume they're gone and not available. Which is more likely now? Does the Big 12 absorb like the best brands next, which is what we've been talking about here for a very long time? Or is it some sort of compilation and cobblation of where everybody sort of sorts out in the ACC as a predominant number of teams in it? Or is it either of those?
It's really hard to tell, but here's what I can tell you, what I know for certain. I know that those 7 schools that met a couple of years ago in the ACC to try to figure out
the secret meeting. Yeah,
they're all gone.
Okay, can you name them?
Florida State, Clemson, UNC, NC State, Virginia Tech, Louisville, and I think Georgia Tech.
Is that right? Is that 7? Okay. Now, did you say Virginia Tech too?
Yeah, Virginia Tech was part of that.
Okay, so 7. And those 7, do they go to just the Big 10 and the SEC, or do they go to the Big 12, Big 10, and SEC?
Well, they don't have enough value. The only 2 schools that have enough value to cross that value threshold for the SEC and Big 10 are Florida State and Clemson.
How does that work then?
Well, okay, so if you think of the average share, think of as media only, that the average SEC and Big 10 member gets from their contract. To be added, you have to be at least equal to that, but they like to see a profit. What they can do is there's ways that they can sneak profit in. Like if the ACC and Big 12 would cease to exist, that pile of money that goes to that's allotted to them right now gets divided up from to the Big 10 and the SEC. And it also does another thing. It triggers a law of supply and demand. It takes 2 inventory providers off the table, and it means that a network like ESPN, who depends on live sports, for the business model, and it's becoming more and more important to other people, it shifts the negotiating and leverage power from the network to the conferences, because the networks, and we saw it in play with the big with Pac-12, is they use conferences against each other to keep the prices down.
Yes, yeah, competition.
Yeah. If the SEC and Big Ten can kill the ACC and Big 12, they have all the leverage.
Right.
That means that they dictate terms now.
Right.
And that's why ESPN is firmly in the ACC and Big 12's corner.
Interesting.
Because
Okay.
they don't want consolidation, because they'll be paying NFL-like fees for content that they've been getting for realistically, maybe a quarter on the dollar.
Unless you outright kill those conferences by taking their best brands, and now you owe nothing because the conference ceases to exist. You could look at it that way too.
Yeah, but the negotiating leverage then shifts to the Big Ten and SEC.
Right. Right.
And they're going to compare what the NFL and NBA gets in rights fees to what college football does.
Yeah.
It's astronomical, the difference. ESPN, Fox, everybody wants to avoid that, because they're under pressure to make a profit. Disney has a profit margin the ESPN has to meet, or the share. The board gets mad, cages get rattled. That's why ESPN switched its value model. They bring matchups.
But they're still paying per subscriber, aren't they? Or did they get rid of that?
Well, they're still receiving carriage fees, but the market projections for carriage fees have them, sort of bottoming out in 2028 and then starting to recede. That's why you see this big push of direct to consumer.
I was just going to mention that. Yeah, the direct to consumer model, the application, people can just go and get all of ESPN without going through Xfinity or anything else.
I deal a lot with ACC people. I love them and hate them at the same time.
I have no problem with them.
But they crow about the ACC network and how much money it makes for them.
Right.
They realize it's bundled. ESPN goes to a cable company and says, "Okay, your customers want to carry ESPN. If you want to carry our channel, and you have to pay our premium carriage fee, and you also have to offer ACCN."
Yeah,
so it's not.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, it's market push and market pull. Market pull is when there's customer demand for a product. Excuse me. ESPN is market push, pushing it on cable companies, and it's to this point, cord cutting has been real, but what they've done is just raise the prices for the subscribers.
That's right.
Who remain. That is coming to an end.
I'm this close. If my kids weren't at home watching, I don't know, Bachelor or something, and I had to record it, I would get rid of Xfinity and just have the internet, but it's still too expensive to break them apart. Even I did the math, and what I'm getting, including ESPN, without having to pay for an application, is still about $10 or $15 cheaper than if I went to every application that I would need, right? So that CBS, NBC, ABC, I mean, all of them, I get it all in one place. So in some places, I know it's really expensive. The infrastructure and telecommunications, it's very expensive to get those things, and those fees may be higher. In Utah, it happens to be, if you do the math, depending on where you're at, it's much cheaper than if you do the application then like do a direct TV or something like that. So
I pay $84 a month just so that I can have Fox Sport, have ESPN all in one place, because I hate switching apps. I hate
that. No, I get it. That's part of the reason. It's also a convenience fee. The bundling is of convenience. Greg is watching. Appreciate you, Greg. Why aren't you watching the NFL, Greg? And he just echoes what you said. UNC, NC State, Virginia Tech, UVA, Clemson, FSU, and Miami were the Magnificent Seven. I none of that surprises me. We've talked about these for years now, I can say, in the multiple years. So let's assume, let me get Greg's comment off there. Let's assume that 7 leave, right? Again, I don't care where they go. Let's just continue to pare down the ACC. Now, what people have assumed they're going to do is obviously the ACC wants to stay together, so they'll go grab as many the Memphises and the Tulanes and everything. The big question has been, and this is where your data is really interesting to me, does the contract get renegotiated and does the valuation go down when they lose those brands but the ACC stays together? Or are they able to negotiate something so they keep their current value, they continue to grow at the 4% or 3% that's in the contract, and they see that thing out till 2036?
Well, I've got two answers for that. One
Okay.
is there's a clause in every contract called the material composition clause.
Okay.
And it basically gives ESPN the right to do one of two things. They can either pay pro rata or subtract pro rata. For example, if Florida State and Clemson would leave, they could just subtract the pro rata, their shares that they received.
Right.
So that means that nobody in the ACC would get would really get anything less. The other thing that they can do is they can trigger a renegotiation of the entire contract, but entirely up to ESPN. You can't replace Power 4 programs or Power 5 programs with G5 programs. They're just not comparable. They just don't have the value. ESPN is not going to do that. Disney would not let them do that. If the ACC loses Florida State and Clemson, they're going to renegotiate, and that's going to open the door for other people to leave. There's always, and we know this to be true because if you go back to 2014 to 2016, when the Big 12 had this idea that they were going to use their pro rata clause in their contract to expand and add G5 programs.
Yeah, they were going to bring BYU, and I was ready to tattoo Big 12 on my forehead. Yeah, that sucked.
Well, the BYU was the only one they could agree on. What happened to BYU was their honor code in the wake of the Baylor scandal.
Anyway, keep going. Painful. I'll just use the word painful, okay?
Fox Sports president warned the Big 12, if you expand with G5 programs and invoke the clause that lets you get paid for them, you'll never have another contract.
Yeah, so and we've sort of assumed that, but hearing that from you and then going into the data, it's totally justified. We've had Bob Thompson, friend of the show, ex-president of Fox Sports and started the Big Ten Network.
One of the few people I respect on Twitter because he knows his stuff.
Yeah, I would. Anybody who's watching right now, if you don't know Bob Thompson, for one thing, he engages with you. He's a super nice guy, but he will not take crap. And I know personally, if you say something that's just completely foolish, he will slap you down. I asked Bob these questions. I just asked Chris several times, and he refused to answer because he had some either qualms himself because of his background. He can't expose trade secrets, or he already had a real relationship or a prior relationship with the conferences. But here at the College Football Network, College Football Mafia Network, we have extrapolated those things, and everything Chris is saying, we basically sorted out. The one thing that we can't predict is what is going to happen when it happens, right? I mean, we really don't until people leave the ACC. We don't know what's going to happen next. The only outstanding question I have for you is, no, I have a bunch, but the next one is there tell me what the likelihood is of this best of the rest, best Big 12, best ACC amalgamation. They blow up the conferences and then they reform.
Well, there's several things that could happen. Let's talk about the most likely. In case you haven't noticed, the Big Ten and SEC have been engaged in this Cold War for years.
Yeah.
it all, just for pride. And the SEC added Texas and Oklahoma. The only thing the Big Ten could do was add USC and UCLA, and then you know, the big SEC doesn't want the Big Ten in its territory. It's just a matter of pride. It's lifestyle, it's culture.
Okay.
The Big Ten needs to be in the South because that's where the players are.
Right.
That's where the hardcore. That's where there's. I was one of them poor kids who have to work their butt off and use football and basketball as a means to escape poverty. They want it more. They work harder. They strive. They have volition, conation. You just don't get that anywhere else but the impoverished South. I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's the truth of the matter is. I worked my butt off to play baseball. I hit hundreds of balls, 500-600 balls off tee every damn day to maximize what little talent I have because you're literally hungry.
Sure.
And, that's, you guys out west need to
be careful. You don't know my background, so just be a little careful.
Well, I'm just saying you need to visit some of these areas where football is more than a sport. It's your way out.
I can sit here and say I appreciate that without having to experience it. I understand what you're saying, and yeah. I think it has a bunch of value, and everybody's backgrounds are different, but certainly I think people can understand if you're coming from an impoverished area, and if we're doing generalizations, some of these areas that are in the South but I mean, you can say the same thing about Detroit, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah,
we got to be careful where we make these generalizations. But I get your point. Very good point.
Yeah,
makes sense.
It's a cultural thing.
Yeah, no, I understand. And
this is where the data analytics really is cool because there's a lot of misconceptions. The normal media, they don't put in the work. I could tell you horror stories. I interact with media a lot behind the scenes, and they're lazy. They value their own opinion. Receive knowledge is just as good to them as doing grinding to get the story. Almost all of UVA and UNC's perceived value comes from the inception of the conference network, not because they offer anything to the conference in terms of football or prestige or even academics.
UNC got worked on Monday. That was embarrassing, man.
UNC has poor value to the SEC. And, I know that people say this over and over and over again. I can't get over the math. And I know people in the SEC, and I've worked diligently, again, bugging the hell out of them for a decade now to try to get answers about what actually happened with WVU.
Right.
And, what they tell me is, why would they elevate UNC? What does UNC add to the SEC? They don't cross the value threshold. They're not even close. Would UNC take a third of a share?
Well, I don't know. That's a great question. I think what you're buying is the Jordan brand. You're buying the baby blue. You're buying basketball. There are other reasons. I mean, I appreciate you and I both understand that football is between 3/4 to what is that? 4/5 of every dollar. Right. Okay. So let's just assume that money's gone. I still think look, Bob Thompson, I just fall back on his two biggest were brands and rivalries.
Yeah, right.
First two we mentioned every time. So I just keep coming back. I don't even go to DMA. I just go brands and rivalries. So if those are the things people are paying for, I would I mean, UNC, that's a global brand.
But you realize what you just did. You mentioned Jordan.
Yes. Well, sure.
When you think of UNC, their brand is basketball, right?
Of course. Absolutely.
Is UNC going to propel must-see football matchups?
Well, they tried that on Monday. It didn't work out so well. So I have questions.
Yeah. I mean,
I think it's I don't know if you saw me on Monday, but I think it's kind of It's a pantomime. It's an ESPN gimmick. I think UNC and Bill Belichick, he looked like he wanted to be back in freaking Boston by the second quarter. So I think the whole experiment has every possibility to completely blow up.
Yeah. The SEC people, it was what hiring Bill Belichick was what a basketball person thinks would fit.
That's great. I love that. I'm going to steal that. That's exactly right. It's exactly what it is.
Wow, UNC and Kansas have dogged football for decades, and now they're paying the price. That's the same reason
Kansas is good now this year.
White. Well, good is relative. But remember when they hired Charlie White?
Daniels. Yeah.
Remember? Same thing. It's what a basketball person does to try to fix a football program.
I love that. That is fantastic. You're exactly right. Bill Belichick is a basketball solution for a football problem. That is perfect.
And Bill Belichick had a reputation as being a perfectionist. He wasn't a player's coach. He demanded a lot from his players. His offensive playbook was incredibly
complicated. But at the pro level, you can set expectations or you don't get paid. They don't do that in college.
Yeah, but there's something
you can't compare the two. They're different universes. They don't translate.
Horrible hire. Horrible.
Yes, it was. I said it at the time. It was a horrible hire. So.
And they're paying him. They could have had the guy from John Summerall. Why the hell did you hire him? Bill Belichick?
I'm telling you, you already answered your own question. It's a basketball solution for a football problem. That from now on, that's what I'm going to describe UNC. If you're watching right now and you're just tuning in, we're talking about Big 12, ACC, survival, kind of what happens with all these schools and the brands. And if you just joined us, from now on, University of North Carolina hired Bill Belichick, a basketball school hiring for a football solution coach. Okay. Next question. Oh, go ahead. You want to finish? Go ahead.
Well, I was going to talk about UVA.
Sure.
Around 2012, 2014, I had a good friend who said to me, talking about UVA moving to the Big Ten, and it's far more likely UNC and UVA go to the Big Ten. They're much better fit. He said to me, well, why does UVA need an extra $25 million a year to finish 6-6?
Well, I mean, again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Football's not important to UVA. It's not important to UNC.
But if you ask them right now, between last year and this year, they're putting money into the program and facilities. I mean, if you watch the game, that stadium is now. It looks like it's it looks like a stage a little bit. The lights are all sort of wonky. The color, the lighting was kind of weird, but it was set for TV. It was like they were playing on a stage with a curtain, is what it looked like.
It was, and I'm sorry, I have a personal vendetta against UNC.
Well, we don't need to get into that. There's no reason to do that.
Based on, it wasn't even correct. I used to think that it was UNC who kept West Virginia out of the ACC. It wasn't. It was Virginia Tech.
Gotcha.
But I can't shake it for some reason. But I think they deserve it. They short-sheeted football for years and years and years and years, and now they think they can just hire Bill Belichick, and Tom Brady doesn't have any more. He can't play anymore.
Yeah, no, he's used up his eligibility. Okay, let me ask you a question. You and I were talking before the show started, and I just forgot it. Damn it! It was a great question too. I'll get it. I'll remember. It was something we talked about in the pre-show that had to do with. Now I've forgotten. I'm sorry. It was a good question. It would have made you sound really smart, Chris. I apologize. Kansas. Well, that's not the thing I was going to say, but you mentioned UNC, Kansas again, basketball. So, this was I was going to ask you. So. You said before the show, which I thought was something really interesting, that you don't think it's possible at this point to earn your way in to the Big Ten or the SEC. Either you've already qualified and they're just going to bring you in at some point just to sort of round their numbers, or you're going to have to come up with something else. Do you really believe that? There is no – because I've been trying to give people hope, right? A runway. If you start today and you really go out and win 3 years in a row, you could get an outside invite. I'm not saying it would happen. I'm just telling you that's what I've been talking about.
Half the Big 12 thinks that.
And tell them, is it reality or not, in your opinion?
I think that the teams that are on the cusp can push their way over the threshold. But I think that if you're, I love what Texas Tech is doing, and they care a lot about football, and they're nice people, and I want to see Texas Tech win, but they're not going to push, no matter what they do, no matter how much money they spend, they're not going to get over that hump because Texas won't let them.
But what about Cody? Billionaire activist that's going out, trying to save college football. Anybody who's got a B before their money, I would say, has to have some influence. I mean, he's friends with Trump, so
Well,
politics changed. But I wouldn't just throw that out of hand. I think it's, I
I
don't know
think
if I agree
I,
with that.
I think that I think the ultimate arbiter of who gets the green light is the networks.
Okay.
And I think that that it would be almost like triple market duplication.
Okay. Well, I
And
mean,
so,
Texas is, Texas.
look,
So
Texas and Texas A&M devalue Texas Tech and TCU and every other Texas school
well, sure.
just because of their presence.
So
Because
go ahead.
well, the 31 million people in Texas, they you can't, the more think of that as a pie, always pie analogy. I know it's tiresome,
Sure.
but it works. Keep adding slices of that pie, everybody's a piece gets smaller. So I don't see Texas Tech making it. I think Kansas can make it.
I was just going to say, can I read the super chat really quick? To Town Hawk is a Kansas fan, friend of the show. I appreciate you, Town Hawk. To Town Hawk, it's great to see you. $5 super chat. He's saying your guest just lost me. Erroneous on both counts. Watch this weekend and get educated on KU as Lance Leipold gives Mizzou a wedgie. And I would just add to that, I picked Kansas to beat Missouri. But you just sort of said something a little different about Kansas. You think Kansas can?
I think Kansas can make it.
Okay.
I think
All right.
you know why? Because I think they're more grounded than UNC. I
Okay.
think that, they made their Charlie Weiss mistake how long ago?
Very
And,
long ago.
and
Yeah.
somebody there hired a football coach.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And they have money, and the rules changed, and they can overcome that. If you had asked me the same question 5 years ago, I would have told you WVU was in.
Right.
WVU is not in now. They have a good relationship with the SEC. They can get in, and that's why they're spending money like crazy. I mean, the entire university is committed. The academic side is committed to football. It's
right.
But I think it's iffy.
Okay.
I think Utah has a chance for the Big Ten, not the SEC.
Yeah, we're gonna have to disagree on that. I still think that's a myth. Whatever. Okay. I'm listening to
I don't
you.
know about the SEC. They have a chance at the Big Ten.
Okay.
I think that Colorado has a real good shot, but I'm real iffy about Colorado's future because it's almost their success is predicated on Deion Sanders, and I think he's mercurial. And
That's a good description.
I think that what conferences want to see, and the SEC put WVU through the ringer. They don't look at things in a snapshot. They look at things in 25, 50, and 100-year increments.
Okay.
Because they're giving you a forever home, right?
Yeah.
And they want to make sure that not only do you have the resources to compete, but you have the will to compete.
So we got a bunch of people watch. I cannot believe how many people are watching. This is what's happening, and it's cool because YouTube can do this. People are watching on their phones while they're watching the football game, right? So people are multitasking. If you're watching us at all, I appreciate you being here. I've got a special guest tonight. It is inside the Big 12, Chris. Been around a long time. If you've been on Twitter at all and you've talked about ACC, Big 12, Power 2, anything college football, you've probably come across him. Very engaging. You might not agree with him, but at least he will engage conversation with you, which is why he's here tonight. And I've very much appreciated him sharing some time with us. Tonight, we're probably going to go, I cannot go through, what is this list? I'm looking at the screenshot. ACC and Big 12 account for 29 teams. No, 39 teams. Let's see, 16 and
Yeah.
17, 33 teams. I can't account for all these tonight, so we're not going to go through those line item after line item, but there are some that people ask about more than others that I'll quickly run through with you. So I appreciate everybody being here tonight. If you want to ask a question of Chris, or from me, that matter, make it a super chat, and then I read all super chats. I appreciate everybody's being here tonight, all the members, and there are probably 80 members watching, and I really am grateful for you guys. Anybody who's new to the channel, if you're watching on X, do me a favor, jump over onto YouTube, hit College Football Mafia, hit the subscribe button, give us a little ding bell, tell us how we did or didn't do, give us some feedback. And I'm going to try to convince Chris to come back in the future. So be nice to Chris if you wouldn't mind, even if you disagree.
No, you don't have to be nice to me.
And we will continue to. We'll do more of these shows. Hopefully, he'll be up to it. So, I'll let you say one more thing, and then I'll ask you about a few schools.
Before I forget, I have some information to give you about the Big 12.
Sure, go ahead. Yeah, absolutely.
I really, really think that in as much as the data tells me that the Big 12, their best opportunity to succeed individually is to succeed as a conference
together, right?
Together, and they are following a value model that mimics the SEC's rise to power and profitability.
Okay,
and they have a killer instinct with your market top. Now, I have some truly inside information, and I'm going to have to give you approximations as to not burn who gave it to me.
Let's go. I want to hear it.
All right. So we all know the Big 12. First of all, when you do contract negotiations, you do your own independent valuation, and the network does their valuation, and you negotiate.
Okay.
The network always expects you to take a haircut, okay? Because they have all the leverage, and you're not going to get your true fair market value because they need a margin to make a profit.
Okay.
But I know with a degree of certainty that would literally be only useful in a court of law or an operating theater, that the Big 12 has spoken in depth with Louisville and Miami.
Really? I mean, I know Louisville. I jumped at Louisville at the very beginning of
in 2012, Miami has some red flags around their program that, sort of throw both the Big Ten and SEC off. In 2012, they were afraid they were going to get left behind. And I guarantee you the Big 12 will use the same modus operandi they use with Colorado, is that they want to they'll offer Louisville and Miami a home so that they can be certain not to be left out.
Right.
But there's evaluations here. Based on the Big 12's current contract, if they add Louisville, and Louisville is, you've heard me talk about complementary goods versus inserted goods.
No, why don't you define that really quick?
Well, complementary goods are additions that increase everybody's value because they produce those matchups and those rivalries.
So they're stronger together than they are individually.
Right, like Pitt and WVU are. Their value is greater together, although both hate to admit it.
Right.
Louisville, WVU, Miami, and WVU, they add value. The Big 12 could expect a bump from them. And I'm having it really hard not to burn. Okay. If the current member share is 31.7 million, this is what my guy was using as a basis.
Okay.
The Big 12 could expect to see almost $4 million per member bump.
For both schools or just for the one Louisville?
For both. If they added both, everybody's member share without the haircut factored in, fair market value would go up for between 1.9 and 4.4 million.
Okay, so roughly you get to 35 million, hopefully.
Yeah, it would take him up to 35 point something. I'm not going to tell you what the point is.
No, that's fine. That's fine. No, it's not important.
The haircut, again, that's just there's like call something like a delta.
You keep saying haircut. Is that like a kickback?
It's it's like when the Big 12 was negotiating with ESPN and Fox. They had a value that was much greater than what they accepted, but they had to take that haircut to get the deal.
Yeah, because the Pac-12 was,
because they just offered a big deal. And, and same thing, and this is how the networks operate. You either take the haircut on your fair market value or we'll give it to somebody else. And we'll make sure that, ESPN killed the Big East.
Yep.
And ESPN and Fox killed the Pac-12.
Yes, they did.
And everybody knows that.
So, so let's continue your story. So Louisville, Miami are now off the board.
We could see that go up to as much as 36.6 million per share.
Okay.
And if they could add North Carolina State and Virginia Tech,
which I would love,
that's when you're really getting into complementary goods.
Okay.
When you because you're creating matchups. West Virginia, North Carolina State, West Virginia, the West Virginia's rivalry with Virginia Tech is every bit as brutal as it is with Pitt. I'm not more so. I feared for my life once.
Okay, well, we don't want that. Okay.
It was the night game where tear gas. Oh, it was. They go up another 3 million. So if they add,
you're trying to get to 40 million is kind of what it says.
If they add the 4, they would hit 40.5.
Okay, for one thing, I love those 4. Especially, I love Miami. There's absolutely no doubt about it. Miami is a blue blood, in my opinion. So, wow, and man, if we're throwing darts, how likely is that? Because now 2027, 2028, the ACC look in, the Big 12 negotiate early, got the Big 10 going in 28, 29.
Well, you've got that confluence, that the Big 12's contract starts renegotiating. Same time the exit fee drops down to $75 million.
Yes. Yep.
That's not a coincidence.
No,
that's
of
also
course
the same
not.
time the Big 10's contract comes up for negotiation.
They're a year earlier, though.
But they're
29. Yeah,
they're going to be circling, and you can just like Texas, and
right.
Oklahoma make that announcement for you.
Agreed. I completely agree with you.
I bet you, because I know how this game is played behind the scenes, that the SEC and Big 10 don't like to be the bad guy. They will let the Big 12 be the bad guy, like they did with Colorado.
I love being the bad guy.
Well, it's the only option the Big 12 has.
Yeah, that's true. It is the only path to success. I agree with you.
I bet you $1 to a donut. Louisville and Miami announced they're leaving for the Big 12 before Florida State and Clemson announced they're going wherever they're going.
What? Okay, now that is crazy.
Because
that is actually nuts. I've never heard anybody else say that before Clemson and Florida State.
Because, think about the feeding frenzy in the Pac-12, how desperate people were.
Yeah, it was ugly for sure.
Nobody wants to end up being Stanford or Cal or SMU.
That's right. And we've always talked about Louisville is the Colorado, but if it's Louisville, Miami, oh my gosh. That would be incredible.
Those are the two programs with the highest value.
Yeah.
Who have other things working against them. Okay. Like it or not, Miami's seen as a rogue outlaw program. They have very fickle fans. They have a rock star mentality that the SEC does not like. And they do not, academics are world class. They don't fit that Big 10 mold either. And they know it because of what happened in 2012.
But why? So this is kind of bipolar for me because Miami got AAU, and you assume that's a club, right? They have to invite you in. Not everybody gets in, and AAU got an invitation. It would kind of surprise me that they would get in front of that. That does surprise. I mean, obviously, I've told you.
Well, Miami doesn't have rap stars hanging around their research and principal investigators,
right?
They don't have there's a lot of things. There used to be before the NIL, somebody who is really into this stuff, and from the network level, said that there was always worried that Miami couldn't win and run a clean program.
Yeah.
Well,
I remember when it was built too.
nobody
So
has to run a clean program now, but
right.
but and there's a good argument. They have a small alumni base. They're real exclusive. Sometimes that academics work against you in terms of athletics,
Wow.
and they do. They have that rock star. You remember, people form perceptions, and when you think of a program, you see, what's that documentary, the Notre Dame in Miami,
Oh yeah, Catholics and convicts.
Catholics and convicts.
Great, by the way, 30 for 30. Go check
Yeah,
it out on ESPN.
Miami has not shed that convict perception.
I
And
love Miami. I've always loved Miami.
well, they do have fickle fans. They will abandon the program if they're not doing well.
Well, yeah, it's been a journey for sure. FF18 Buffs, member and somebody who contributes around here. Sorry, I just put a mint in my mouth. $10 super chat. He's a Colorado Buffalo, by the way. I appreciate being in the Big 12, but are conferences worth the squeeze, or would a single super league? Great question. Create a much more overall value to each potential qualifying member. Supra League for the win. And you've heard my Supra League idea. I don't care about conferences. Keep your conferences for everything else. But for football, this is the number, and this is how many people are going to get in.
How many programs do you think can win the SEC or Big Ten?
6.
In each, or
no, the Big Ten. Yeah, the Big Ten between. Yeah, SEC is probably 90 that can win it on a given year, and I think the Big Ten's maybe 5 or 6.
I think that probably only Georgia, LSU, Alabama can realistically count on winning the SEC year in and year out.
Oh, well, yeah, that's a different question. You asked
Yeah.
who could win it. I'm just telling you programs
Well,
that are
yeah.
trying. Yeah. If you're talking about today, who's going to win it and who's most likely, yeah, what you said is exactly right.
Well, the thing I worry about these consolidated conferences is unless they have true profit sharing, which like the NFL does, like they merge their licensing and everybody gets, and everybody has to spend the same amount of money to.
That's right.
Unless it goes to that true pro model, programs like West Virginia and Colorado and Utah are always going to be at a disadvantage because the money in the SEC is unbelievable. And what people don't get is the T-shirt alumni. T-shirt alumni are incredibly important to WVU.
Define what that is. What's a T-shirt alumni?
It's somebody who's passionate about the program who never went to college.
Okay.
They wear the T-shirts. That makes them an alumnus.
I'm all for it. A fan has nothing to do with graduating. So.
Right. Well, yeah. They are. People count when you do evaluation. Usually, you factor in alumni. Nobody factors in T-shirt alumni.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Can't quantify. Hard to quantify. I mean,
interesting. That's where the 30% number that you mentioned near the beginning of the show you were talking about.
Yeah, it's so much of the data that used to be available up until 2018. I no longer have access to. In 2018, I could get data from CLC merchandising, and I could pinpoint. You could do all these calculations and come up with a pretty good picture of who's who and what's what.
Okay.
Learfield owns all that data now, and it sits on that evil database that they won't let anybody have access to.
Okay. All right. Well, I have no reason to question that. I've never heard the term before, but it makes total sense. Thank you, Fergie, for the $10 super chat. I appreciate it. So you've hinted pretty much around all the Big 12. I didn't ask you about every school. The one school that stands out always, like a sore thumb, is BYU. Where do we go?
BYU is going to be tough. That the religious affiliation doesn't serve a pro model very well.
I don't
You know,
know. I wouldn't say it that way. I don't think that's true. BYU's brand is absolutely merchandisable.
well, I'm a Mormon magnet. Mormons love me because
Okay.
all my vices are, I don't drink, don't smoke, don't do drugs. You look at me and you think I'm religious when I'm not. I'm an atheist.
Okay.
Uh, um, but you get misconceptions applied to you. Even me, because my wife calls me an enemy of fun, by the way, enemy of joy.
Okay. All right. Whatever.
I I have to turn every vacation into work.
Okay. All right. All right. So
But
just to answer you, go ahead and finish. Go ahead.
there's in the entertainment industry, there's something called Q score, and I've been
Uh-huh.
trying really, really hard to develop a Q score for programs. And the Q score, what it does is it quantifies a artist or an actor's mass appeal, and it lets you put a dollar value on what their endorsement would be.
Okay.
Uh, and what we know that when you form a conception of someone or a preconception, that first impression, and I make horrible first
It's
impressions.
very hard to fight. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
that recency bias is you almost never overcome it. So for ill or will, you're branded one thing or the other. Could BYU is incredibly valuable. Everybody recognized that BYU had uh, Power Five value when they were independent.
Yes.
I know that WVU and Gordon Gee worked very hard to get BYU into the Big 12 because there's uh, you know, higher education tends to be more liberal, or used to be
Oh,
before
certainly.
Trump
Yeah.
went to war against it. And even though I'm an atheist, I am not. You do your religion. I mean, if it comforts you, I'm glad that you have it. I wish I had something that comforted me. But higher education institutions, especially leaderships in those ivory towers, who like to feel elitist, will oftentimes use those things as exclusionary tactics, and that's just human nature. And
Right.
I think that BYU would have to work hard to overcome that. I think Utah does too. Baylor, they're God love Baylor. They're in the same boat. I mean, they will never get over that scandal in the ivory towers. Texas Tech. By the way, I want to say something about Texas Tech.
Go ahead.
Texas Texas Tech is cursed. They will not win anything until they pay Mike Leach the money they owe him. They use sovereign immunity to break his contract and not pay him.
So you're going to bring the ghost of Mike Leach back and have him get paid?
Well, pay his family, pay his estate. It's the right thing to do.
I'm not against it. I think it's a fun conversation. I love Mike Leach. He was awesome.
Swing your
Um,
sword, man.
so at the end of the day, I think what I'm hearing, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm going to try to repeat back to you what I've heard, that between the two, there is an opportunity for the Big 12 to strike and maybe even strike early to get schools, whether it's Louisville or it's Louisville, Miami, or it's Louisville, Virginia Tech, whatever. The Big 12 has an opportunity to do this. It kind of sounds like the ACC is more like a helpless baby. Obviously, Notre Dame is keeping that thing going. Um, where are we going with Notre Dame?
Well, that's the big uh, QP prize. That's why I could see the Big Ten adding UNC and Georgia Tech uh, as
Okay.
Notre Dame bait. Notre Dame
And
has
Stanford, and then pick up Stanford in the
and
West.
Stanford. Notre Dame had Stanford added to the ACC,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
they could keep playing them and supposedly not harm their strength of schedule because all of a sudden Stanford was in a power conference.
That's right. Yes.
Um, so
4 teams that sounded like then.
yeah, you could. Notre Dame's hard to predict. They'll always do what's best for Notre Dame.
Yep.
I think that the SEC and Big Ten should box them out. If they don't want to join a conference, they can play. Uh, G5 programs. They can play
Yeah.
Holy St. Mary's or whatever. I
Yeah.
mean,
I mean,
and their
you and I
goal,
both want that. I don't think that will ever happen. I think Notre Dame's always going to be Notre Dame.
they have an open invitation. There's something called inflationary rate. Again, I've been working on this model for Q score and all this stuff for a long
Mm-hmm.
time. And what I've tried to do is determine the intrinsic television value of a program. And there are several programs that inflate the ratings enormously. Notre Dame is one of them. Florida State is one of them. Clemson is another one. That they will literally see a jump of 2 or 3 million in viewers. Just
Makes sense.
yeah, and Ohio State, Michigan, Texas A&M.
Sure.
It's I don't know. It's just I value truth and I want to understand and I want to be fair to everybody. So that's why I've been working so hard to try to distill these things down to something that can give a good comparable value.
Mm-hmm.
Again, knowing that I'll never have access to enough information to be accurate. It's ballpark hand grenade accurate.
I've got it. I've got it in my head, some way, shape, or form. I got to get you and Jeff Fuller together. We need to talk because I think he does have access, not to the some of the rating stuff you talked about. I don't think I think he uses a lot of the public data you do, but he also has other sources of information that you guys might be able to either conflict with, or maybe you could combine and come up with more accurate numbers. But at the end of the day, um, what you're doing, I really, really appreciate. Whether people agree with you or not, at least you're willing to share and have a conversation and engage. If you're watching this show right now, and there's like 160 people watching it live right now, on top of whoever's on X, I appreciate you being here first. Thanks for being here. I know the NFL's on. This conversation has been fantastic. If you just got here, we've been talking for over an hour now about the Big 12, ACC, and kind of how college football is going to look on that side of it. I'm going to have Chris back. We're going to do more in the future, but this is really an interview. This is downright. I wanted to get as much information and quotes from him as possible. So I would encourage everybody to go on Twitter, engage with Chris at Inside the Big 12, and ask some questions. He's as long as you're fair with him, he will be fair with you. If you're a jackass, say stupid stuff, and I wouldn't even talk to you. So that's something I want to encourage everybody to do. We've been on super chats tonight because I wanted to get more out of him and less on other stuff. So I appreciate everybody that's done the super chats. Chris, did you have fun? Would you do this again?
Yeah, it did. I hang out with a bunch of people who are far smarter than I do, and they talk about scaffolding, and I don't even know half of what the words they use, but they don't like football.
That's hard. That's very difficult. I kind of run in those circles too. Nobody wants to talk sports with me either. I just remembered a topic. And if you're just joining us, I'm not signing off quite yet because this is one I think this is big. By the way, Timothy Green in the house, Soldier, West Virginia, representing the Big 12 and also representing this channel, College Football Mafia. Thank you so much, Timothy. Everyone, please hit that like button, share, subscribe, and comment. Thank you very much. The subscribe is the big one for me. I know I've got a bunch of new people watching. If you're not hitting the subscribe button, please let me know why. Send me a DM on Twitter. All my DMs are open. I'd love to talk to you about it. The Big 12 Fox thing, and then the Barstool announcement. For one thing, I love Big 12 on HBO. I every time I queue up my HBO now, the Big 12 show or shows, there's a few of them now, pop up, and I love seeing that, right? Because you usually go to HBO to watch Game of Thrones or any of these other things, but now it's live TV. I don't have to go to my Xfinity. I can watch it right there. If you didn't know about it, you're a Big 12 fan, the access and the production quality is incredible. I did ask Bob Thompson about this on Twitter last week, I think. I proposed the idea that maybe the Big 12, no, sorry, maybe Fox slash True TV, whatever, TNT, would possibly buy the rights from ESPN, the majority rights in the Big 12, and then they would take it over in 2030, 31. The one question I have for you is, Bob made it sound like ESPN's not giving up those rights because they are getting them so cheap right now, and you described that earlier.
Yeah.
Does ESPN have the first right of refusal when it goes to renew time?
Well, you talk about the general contract or just for
Yeah,
the?
yeah, yeah. Like what
Yes,
would it take for TNT to buy the whole shooting match? That's what I'm saying.
it would. You don't want to go down that road because the two conferences that tried it both died. They have an exclusive negotiating window that lasts for about a year.
Okay.
And you can, after that, you can elect to take your rights to the open market. ESPN has been the number one consumer of live sports because it's their business model. So it has been foolish to do so.
Okay.
The Big 12 nearly ruined its relationship with ESPN and Fox, and it basically gave the Tier 3 rights to save that relationship.
Okay.
And the Big 12 can thank the only two programs in the conference, aside from Texas and Oklahoma, who made money off their Tier 3 TV rights, Kansas and West Virginia.
Okay.
They both had to redo their contracts with IMG, and they both ended up losing money as a result.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But it ultimately led to this contract, so it paid off in the end. I FOIA'd WVU about that when that happened, and I received, I don't know, 300 or 400 pages of documents that were completely blacked out. The
Oh,
only thing that,
so what's the point then?
well, WVU has a sense of humor. The only thing that wasn't blacked out was an email from Oklahoma's president to Gordon Gee, thanking him for saving the conference because Gee was the one who worked out that deal with ESPN.
Well, there you go. That's awesome.
300 pages, one paragraph praising Gee. That's WVU.
Well, I think that the Barstool thing, people need to relax. Everybody think he's just going to be all shock jock stuff. I actually think, even though I don't personally like Barstool, Portnoy knows what he's doing on social media. So if you're a Big 12 fan and you're scared of the partnership or whatever that relationship with Barstool Sports, just take
Why
a
would
step
you be
back.
scared of that relationship? It's entertainment. We're going to see
People
your
believe me on Twitter. I got a bunch of DMs saying, "Oh, they suck," and Barstool's not going to ruin the brand and all these other things. People were a bit surprised.
Well, the brand is Starry. If it were a soda,
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to do things to close that gap. It would surprise me to see Yormark and the presidents picking up pop cans off the side of the road and turning them in. I mean, they're going to do everything they can
Yeah.
to generate income. And another thing that I bet they've turned down private equity. I
Yeah.
bet you they sweeten the pot for Louisville and Miami and maybe Virginia Tech and North Carolina State and use private equity to help offset their exit fee.
I'm not using private equity anymore. I'm using private capital. There is a difference.
Well,
capital infusion is different than
yeah,
selling part of your
they expect
whatever.
a pretty hefty return.
Oh,
But if you,
sure. Certainly. They're going to get their money back plus. There's no doubt about it. I'm just
yeah, but
saying there is a slight difference between the two.
if I'm looking at the numbers, about the increase,
Yeah.
it would, if I'm not talking about paying, $300 million for all four. I'm talking about giving, the Big 12 basically paid WVU's exit fee from the Big East.
Yes.
They gave them the loan and then forgave it. So it was $25 million. If
Yeah.
you look at the help, the Big 10 gave Maryland and Rutgers.
Yes.
There's a, precedent for that. But, if they give them each $30 million,
Yes.
that would entirely be worth it.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I say pay their exits, whatever it needs to be, and I would take all four of them tomorrow if we could do it. There is absolutely no doubt about that. So Town Hawk $2 super chat says TNT is greater than ESPN. I'm sorry, I am in love with the production value of TNT. Sorry, times 100. Thank you NBA for being dumb. That is basically where that money's coming from. Is they sold their rights so that no longer the NBA goes through TNT. They got to have other things to sell.
Yeah, well, TNT's not going to pay $2 billion for the Big 12's media rights.
No, they might not, but a good partnership just to get some of it out there. It's more about recognition than anything else. The 12 brand, I think, has value.
you leverage your inventory. You make good additions that offer attractive matchups. You have entire conference that's committed to allocating the resources to play meaningful football. You can do it. The Big 12, they are following the SEC's road to profitability, and people yell at me all the time when I say, but they're doing it. They're building value.
Justin R. USF Bulls. Man, you guys got to keep winning. That was a good win over Boise State. $10 super chat says, question for Chris: if the NFL decides to opt out of their TV rights in 2029, nobody's walking away from the NFL, but and go to the open market. Oh, I see. Okay, and go to the open market. Should everyone outside of a few conferences be worried about their next TV deals?
Yes, because money is limited.
I agree.
Corporations, the Big 12 recognized that the bubble had burst on sports media rights because Disney limited what ESPN could spend on rights. ESPN basically didn't negotiate. They had money left over that they offered the Big 12 after the Pac-12 refused it. That was it. It was take it or leave it.
Believe me, I was living over here and I was laughing every second. Believe me, and I've lived the Pac-12 up. The Pac-10, whole different show. Pac-10 was something. Pac-12, in my opinion, was absolutely nothing. So
what's that West Coast culture change? You look at the demographics of these schools.
Yes.
The football is a blue-collar sport.
Sure. I mean, there's also a lot of white collar in it too now. I mean, more. It's growing, right? It is spreading out. It is getting into areas that necessarily it wasn't in before. But
it's one because of the sissy rules they have in place.
Oh, here we go. That's all right. Any other super chats? I'll give you about 90 seconds, and then we're going to get out of here. I went a little bit over, but this conversation, Chris, was amazing. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about what you do on Twitter? And anything else you want to say?
I waste time and procrastinate my real work because I have feelings of inadequacy.
Well, I'll take it. I love having you here.
I miss Oklahoma because, when I was bored and needed somebody to argue with, I could just go on and talk about their quarterback and just say, any derogatory comment about their quarterback. You remember the guy? And thousands of responses people I could argue with.
I don't recall what that is specifically, but I think that goes with any. I think Mateer, if Oklahoma makes it into the playoff, Mateer could win the.
No, he's in the pros now. The one.
Oh, the guy you're talking about? Okay.
Yeah. The one who. The Garrett Green clone. If I go on Twitter and say he was a Garrett Green clone.
Yeah. They didn't like that too much, I'm sure.
Yeah, they didn't.
All right. Chris, thank you so much for coming on tonight. We will do this again, okay?
Well, sure. I just hope everybody understands college football is in a precarious situation and that we all need to be hitting up people who represent us in Washington to save it because that's the only thing that can, I think.
There you go. I appreciate you. Everybody have a great night. Thank you for joining us tonight on this edition of The Take, interviewing Chris inside the Big 12. Go watch football. Get off of me. This is not.
Hey, I stopped watching the pros when the Oilers left Houston.
I appreciate that. Seahawks is, I appreciate what you're saying. Everybody have a great night. Stay out of trouble. We'll see you tomorrow night right here. I don't know if it's going to be 7 or 8 Eastern, but we'll be here. We have a special guest, somebody that everybody will love. So I encourage you to do that. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, subscribe on YouTube. If you're on Twitter, jump over on YouTube for a second and hit the subscribe button. College Football Mafia. Got a whole team. We do a whole bunch of stuff. Most important thing to me, I started the whole deal, is that we have these conversations and we respect everybody's opinion. So I appreciate everybody. Have a safe and wonderful evening, and we'll see you tomorrow night. Chris, you have a good weekend.
I'll try.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon. Okay, I sent you my cell phone number, so if you ever want to talk, don't wait for a DM. I'm slow on those.
All right.
Okay. Well, all right. We'll see you. Everybody have a great night. We'll see you later. Bye-bye. Peace.